Now, I know what you're wondering. How did he get the license to show Yeat's Out the Way video on his channel? Surely that must have cost him a ton. And that's where you'd be wrong, because this isn't Yeat's video. Okay, it is Yeat's song, but that isn't Yeat. That's me. And this is how I recreated the entirety of the Out the Way video in Unreal Engine 5 and a bunch of other less significant software. So let's jump in, shall we? It all started when I saw the original video directed by Lyrical Lemonade and thought this had to be the best implementation of virtual production in a music video that I'd seen to date.
Wait till you see the... No.
Feel free to disagree with me if you like, but you'd be wrong. Seeing that video made me start thinking, I went to college for computer games design. I should be trying some virtual production. So I blew the dust off my old copy of Unreal and got to work. With all the updates Epic Games have made over the last 10 years since I last used Unreal, such as real-time lighting and reflections using Lumen, new rendering techniques such as Nanite allowing you to have insane amounts of detail in your meshes and environments at a fraction of the computing power it used to take, and the integration of revolutionary virtual production tools and plugins that have allowed for the creation of genre-defining TV shows that I've never seen, like The Mandalorian, I knew that this was going to be an absolute breeze. I was wrong. Let's face it, I finished college in 2013. It's been 10 years since I last used Unreal and I had no clue what anything did anymore. I was staring into a virtual abyss, contemplating my life choices, wondering why I ever let this skill fade from my memory. I could have been developing games for Activision or EA by now. Yeah, on second thought, I'm kind of grateful that that's not the case. But then I stumbled across a beginner's tutorial to Unreal Engine 5 by a guy called Unreal Sensei, who in 5 hours taught me more than I remember learning in the 2 years that I spent at college. So shout out to Unreal Sensei because his tutorial genuinely brought me up to speed in a dramatically quick span of time. And so if you want full breakdowns on how to use Unreal Engine, I highly recommend checking out Unreal Sensei, another creator, Winbush, and another person named William Fauscher, because they have some incredibly detailed explanations and tutorials about all the different crazy things that you can do inside Unreal. But anyway, getting back to it, here we are. I felt like a whole new world had just opened up for me. Not literally though, as I was still staring at a blank project. But the possibilities of how I could use this reobtained skill set going forward felt limitless. But I guess they were slightly, because I couldn't afford a giant LED volume like they used to produce The Mandalorian. But nonetheless, with the restrictions I did have, the possibilities and applications for this new technology was still undeniably vast. Now I was back up to speed with Unreal, it was time to tackle my first test. Back engineering the Lyrical Lemonade Yeat Out the Way video. Can we roll the title card again? Can we play the title card again? Okay, so the first thing I had to do was stop staring into this endless black void, as it was doing my psyche no favors and was honestly a little bit scary. To do that, I had to add some elements to make this place feel like a little bit more of a nice place to visit. First, I added a landscape, but that didn't seem to help because it was still pitch black. So next, I had to add some lights. A directional light to act as our sun, and a skylight to cast light reflected from the clouds onto the environment. But there were no clouds. Thanks to Unreal Sensei though, they didn't take me too long to find. I just needed to drag in a sky atmosphere, and a set of volumetric clouds, and an exponential height fog, and set them all to movable. Nice. Now, as the god of my own simulation, I'd completed my first task of creating the heavens and the earth, and I was pretty satisfied, especially when I realized how cool it was to move the sun around and see the lighting change in real time. But I had to stop letting how cool Unreal had gotten over the years distract me and get back to the task at hand. The next thing I needed to do was start sculpting the landscape and begin making the environment look like the environment from the Yeat video. Dropping in a mannequin for reference, I used Quixel Bridge to find a sand texture to make the environment look more like a desert, created a basic material that allowed for me to resize the texture on the landscape, and then used the landscape tool to create similar looking sand dunes to the ones seen in the original video. After that, trying not to get distracted by it again, I moved the sun and positioned it so it would cast shadows in the same directions as the ones in the original video, Once I'd done this, I took a minute to gaze at my creation, and I was fairly certain that this wasn't the method that they used in the original video. Taking a look at it, it appeared that the team had used baked lighting instead of lumen, but due to me wanting to limit how much time I would have to spend working on this project, and wanted to take advantage of the new technology Unreal 5 had to offer, I decided it made more sense to give lumen a try. Next, dragging a post-processing volume into the scene and setting it to infinite extent unbound. I then had full control of the scene and was able to edit things as if I was using something like DaVinci Resolve or Final Cut Pro to color grade footage shot on a camera. But because this was a simulated world, I had even more control than I usually would and could edit things like exposure, bloom and chromatic aberration in real time. And having had some experience color grading in the past, I was pleasantly surprised to see some color wheels and felt even more enthused to continue on. It would take way too long and be way too boring for me to explain each and every value I changed and why. So for those of you who are interested, I'll throw up some screenshots for you to pause and look at. But for those of you who just want to keep it pushing, here's the results.
Wow.
I know, I was actually quite surprised too. At this stage, I felt like it actually looked pretty good and that it might genuinely turn out better than I initially assumed. But now, I had to fill the world. And this is where I had to decide whether or not I was going to copy the models in the original Yeat video one for one, or if I was just going to be lazy and put in random things. After thinking about it for a while, I was leaning more towards putting in random objects as I thought it would be quicker, and I truly wasn't prepared for how big of a project this was going to end up being. So to spend time modeling assets from scratch was out of the question, as it would have added on weeks. But that's when I came across the holy grail of this project. The thing that made me realize none of this was in vain, and it was going to turn out better than I could have initially imagined. That is, drumroll please, the original clown head. The same clown head from the original video. I couldn't believe my eyes. If I had found the original clown head from the original video, then there was only one option. I had to recreate the video and match all the objects as closely as I possibly could. Now, it would have been impossible to find the exact same models for every asset, but it wasn't implausible that I could find models that looked very similar to the ones in the original video and try to match the colors and textures in the engine. But that's when I ran into the next hurdle. I was broke. And the clown head model cost $5. Not exactly a crazy expense, I know, but there had to be 20 plus independent assets in the video, and I couldn't afford $5 per asset. So that meant all the assets had to be free, obviously making an exception for the clown head. After a pretty grueling search through all the royalty-free models on the internet that wouldn't glitch out when I imported them into Unreal, I found what I needed, but in certain instances just had to accept some glitches because it was just virtually impossible to fix them all. Like this glitch that makes models I drag in almost planet-sized, and caught me off guard, making me feel a level of existential panic I can only imagine I'd feel if I saw a giant alien ship in the sky. But that's a pretty funny glitch when you realise what's going on. There's other annoying glitches though, like this one, when I play the level and my character glitches out and falls through the map. After combing through each asset, deleting them all one by one to figure out what was causing the problem, I eventually figured out it was these Jeeps. I had already placed them and textured them. I didn't deem it that necessary at this stage to replace them because I never actually needed to play the level. I just needed to render it out as an animation, and I liked the design, so I just thought I'd bite the bullet and moved on to placing the rest of the models, including the clown head, and dropped a few point lights around the scene just to better emphasize certain objects. Next, I moved on to the animation. You might ask, oh man, how did you animate the flag or the roller coaster? Unfortunately, I can't take credit for these, as they came animated when I found them. I just needed to import them, which came with a whole list of problems of its own. But to make a long story short, if you're going to be importing models into Unreal, I would suggest using the FBX file format. The only things I mainly needed to animate for this was the camera moving back and forth like it does for the length of the original video, and the cars floating and rotating, which, fun fact, I learned the cars were added to make this video a continuation of the Poppin' video, which I thought was a pretty cool motif. I also found out the original video was made in Unreal as well, and that Yeat was apparently not really wanting to shoot music videos at that time. So they set this up as it would only really take about 20 minutes to shoot the video once the environment had been created. But unfortunately, it didn't give me any more guidance on how the video itself was created like I'd hoped it would, so I just had to push on. Using the sequencer tool built into Unreal, it was again a pretty simple task to animate in a camera moving backwards and forwards. And using the blueprint system, I was also able to animate in some camera shake, like you can see in the original video. And then finally, using the animated camera's view to time when I should start the car's animations, the environment was basically complete. For the astute few of you who are still watching, you may have noticed that there's actually something missing in my version of the video that I've neglected to mention so far. That being this cloud in front of the Ferris wheel. And you'd be correct. I ignored it because I didn't do it. For those of you who are saying, you fell at the final hurdle. Yeah, I hear you. I take the L on that one, but if you let me explain. As standard, the volumetric clouds in Unreal Engine aren't movable objects. So initially I stuck with the standard clouds hoping that I'd find a way to make them movable at some point down the line. Fortunately, I did find a method that would allow me to create movable clouds, but it would have meant me removing the volumetric clouds I'd already created. So at that point in time, I just decided that I'd keep the clouds that I'd already made. But if you're wanting to recreate this environment yourself and you want movable clouds, you can follow this tutorial by William Fauscher, who explains the best method of achieving this that I've found so far. How's it going? Sorry to stop the video there. I actually shot and edited this video quite a while before I launched this channel. So there's quite a few things that have changed over the past few months. One of those things being there is actually now a way to create movable clouds in Unreal without any third-party plugins. This got released with 5.3. You can use William Fauscher's method of making movable clouds, but I guess it's a little bit redundant now as it's already in Unreal Engine as a default. So shout out to William, check his channel out definitely. Yeah, clouds are now movable by default in 5.3, so let's get back to the video. The last thing I needed to do then to finish this recreation was green screen myself in. So I grabbed my green screen and my lights and I got dressed up like Yeat. And to be honest, if there was any part of the project that I thought was genuinely going to be difficult, it was this bit, as I'd never actually green screened anything before. But surprisingly, again, it was pretty simple. Except I really didn't help myself by wearing white socks.
Bruh, look at this dude.
At first, I wanted to set my camera up inside of Unreal so that I could have a live feed composited in real time like in Avatar or The Mandalorian. And I even went to the lengths of figuring out how to do it. But then I realized it was actually pretty unnecessary for this project and would also be way more complicated than anything I've explained so far in this video. So I'll have to save that for a video of its own at some point in the future. While I was editing this video, I came across a video by Cinecom, who have now released a full explanation or full tutorial on how to use virtual production tools within Unreal Engine. So if you're looking for that, then I would definitely suggest checking out that video. Getting back to it, after I shot some footage of me dancing in front of a green screen, I then took it over to DaVinci Resolve where I was able to key myself out and apply a basic grade so that the colours would better fit in with the environment back in Unreal, making sure to make my socks black while I was at it. As I was ready to export it, I ran into a few compatibility problems between Unreal and DaVinci as they use different colour spaces, and I had to work out which file formats provided the most flexibility and control back in Unreal. But once I'd ironed out those small kinks and imported the keyed out footage into Unreal, I turned the footage into a texture and applied it to a 2D plane, synced up the frame rates, and the video was complete. Then using the Movie Render Queue plugin to export the sequence, I could then add the finishing touches like camera blur, the silhouetted birds and the title cards in Final Cut Pro and call it a day. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope you liked the video. I think it's incredible the amount of power we have in our hands as creatives these days. This is a new style of video I hope to make more of in the future, where I develop projects and work with new and exciting tools to help build my skill set and hopefully excite you about the things that you're capable of doing as well. So if you want more content like this, consider liking and subscribing, and I hope to see you again soon. Until then, take it easy.